Shocking mass murders at Crystal Lake, tonight on Ion News.
I just can't believe it. We are never going to feel safe in Crystal Lake again.
I think it's pretty easy. It was drugs, I tell you. It's a shame. Kids and drugs. I'd bet my last dollar on it.
More bodies have been found literally strewn across the 5-square-mile campground, leaving officials and residents stunned in the wake of what will forever be known as the Crystal Lake Massacre.
Crystal Lake was founded in 1666 by Lars Kruger. For almost 100 years, we were known for our All Hallows Eve festival, which we shared with our neighbors in Haddonfield. In the summers, when the corn was high, the children would play along the fields that grew out by Old Craven Road. But these are not the things that Crystal Lake is remembered for.
Yeah, I grew up here in Crystal Lake. This town wouldn't even be on the map if it wasn't for what happened at that summer camp.
Crystal Lake has the highest murder rate per capita in the US of A.
Maybe even the world.
Higher than Detroit. Over 300 homicides since the 1980s.
That's when things got really bad.
Didn't it all start with some kid drowning in the lake or something?
No one really knows what happened to him. You know, they say that he went and started living in the woods like a Bigfoot or a Sasquatch or a Yeti or a bear, you know, something like that.
Most folks around here, well, there's one name in particular you don't want to mention if you know what's good for you.
Josh? Hold on.
You know, you guys want to dig up bad memories for everybody. They don't want to fucking relive this shit.
Johnny, Ian.
Why are you so afraid to answer questions?
You know what? Get the fuck out of here.
Jason! That's it, Jason, dude.
We got tourists coming from all over the world looking for this Jason. We got rednecks with rifles organizing their weekend Jason hunting trips. We've got a constant problem with kids. They're trespassing on the condemned campgrounds.
The campground is pretty cool. I love going there. It's pretty dark and it's kind of scary, but I don't really believe anyone was killed there or anything.
Weirdest thing we got is a freaking cult of Jason worshippers. They pray to the guy.
We are the Voorhees 5. We know the truth. We have the power to resurrect Jason Voorhees. This isn't the final chapter. This is a new beginning. Jason lives.
I'm here to tell you, we're not going to stand for that kind of weirdness around here.
I think that I have definitively proven in my book that every murder that has occurred at Crystal Lake has been the act of a copycat killer, several copycat killers, all of whom have adopted the Jason persona to cover their tracks.
Now, there are some so-called experts out there who shall remain nameless, Clifford Blair, and they would have you believe that the murders at Camp Blood after '79 were all committed by copycats. Copycats. If that's the case, how do you explain the indestructible killer?
Explain the eyewitness sightings. Explain the physical evidence left at the camp.
We have a website that I created on my spare time from the copy mat, www.crystalllakecoverup.net.
We had 50 visitors last month.
We are getting our message out there.
Ban that guy. You can't hide the truth. It's like the worm in the apple. It finds its way out.
Yeah, you know, I've seen Jason, you know. I saw him out in the yard, and at first I saw this. He was really tall, you know, really tall, broad shoulders. I saw him from the back, and I got real excited because I thought it was my ex-boyfriend Rex who'd come to surprise me and let me know he got out of prison early, but he turned around and it was not, you know, it's too bad because he's a very tall man.
Here's what we do know about Jason Voorhees. He was born on Friday, June 13th, 1947. On his birth certificate, his father's listed as Elias Voorhees, but we don't know much about him. It's possible that he left Pamela, Jason's mother, when he found out that their son was born with certain problems.
In today's medical terms, Jason's birth defects might have been diagnosed as a form of Proteus syndrome or possibly even neurofibromatosis. Both are childhood congenital disorders that cause atypical bone development and grotesque tumors along the face and body. Jason could have been misdiagnosed with hydrocephalus or even a parasitic condition, which was thought to have affected John Merrick, who is better known as the Elephant Man.
My family founded the summer camp at Crystal Lake. My father had this dream of wanting a place for underprivileged children to come and learn and just have a good time once a year. I went there myself. It was a beautiful place to grow up. And then all that changed when he hired Pamela Voorhees as his cook.
I remember Pamela. Nice, beautiful, pretty girl. Very quiet. She had a son, Jason, if I remember well. Yeah, Jason, yes. She kept the boy sheltered from other children because of his condition.
She really cared for Jason. She took care of him. She was always watching over him, even when she was cooking in the kitchen. She was always watching over him, even when she was cooking in the kitchen in the camp. We teased him sometimes, me and the other kids, and she'd go crazy when we did that and yell at us and you know, almost threaten to scare the hell out of us. We were like 9 or 10 years old. We didn't know what we were doing. But we were almost more afraid of Mrs. Voorhees than we were of Jason.
Jason, he drowned. Very sad, he drowned because he was supposed to be watched by somebody. Oh, it was a tragedy. Very bad thing to happen. But it happened.
Everybody came out, they dragged the lake, they found nothing.
Pamela had to be subdued, taken away. She spent 6 months in an institution. When she was released, no one heard from her. She moved on, moved away. Or so we thought.
So in '79, this new camp's going to open, right?
That's right. And Steve Christie comes in. He's inherited the place from his folks. He's going to set things up straight. It's been years since the camp's been open. He's going to get it back rolling. So he hires some counselors from upstate, including some girls. And guess what? Enter Pamela Voorhees.
By this time, she has gone apeshit insane.
Woman is a loony.
One by one, she killed them. My brother. All those kids. But only one survived.
One of the greatest stories I've ever heard in my life. Dude, 2 girls going at it, like the straight WWE knockout style. And this cute, this freaking ridiculously hot girl, chops off this old woman's head, like out of nowhere. I mean, that is one thing I wish I could have been there to see.
But you know, maybe Mrs. Voorhees had a point, because I love my kids. My kids are the whole world to me. And if anybody did anything to my 7 kids, maybe I'd go whack the motherfucker.
Pamela Voorhees was insane, plain and simple. None of the counselors had anything to do with her son's drowning. They didn't deserve this. They didn't deserve to die that way. None of them did.
Because of the almost Oedipal nature of the relationship between this mother and her only child, Jason's death forced Mrs. Voorhees to have an almost complete break from reality. She felt that she needed to, in a sense, give him life again, as only a mother could.
Pamela's death was the beginning and the end of the Voorhees legacy at Crystal Lake, despite what you might hear from certain people.
What happened was Jason drowned. He did drown, but the currents are a little funny at Crystal Lake. He washed up on the other side.
Who knows how he managed to survive on his own?
He could have eaten anything. Rabbits, bears, maybe a little Shih Tzu coming through the woods.
So you're telling me that all these years he spends growing up in the wilderness, he's out in the wild, he never seeks help. He never looks for his beloved mother.
Take Alice Hardy, the counselor who cut off Mrs. Voorhees' head, dead 2 months after the massacre. It was Jason.
It was a revenge killing all the way.
And even though they never found her body, they found blood. Blood everywhere all over the apartment.
So explain to me, this is an interesting point, explain to me how Jason knew where Alice Hardy lived. Did he look her up in the phone book?
According to her own sworn police statement, Alice Hardy saw a deformed boy emerge from the lake.
She drifted off in a boat, and just before she was rescued, a boy lunged out of the water, a boy with all the physical characteristics of Jason.
There was no boy dragging her underwater. The woman was hysterical. Plain and simple, she fell in. She was damn lucky, too. The sheriff was there to save her.
The timeline makes no sense anyway. I mean, even if Alice had been pulled under the water by some aquatic boy monster, how could it be Jason? Wouldn't he have been full grown by then? He drowned 20 years earlier, but a boy jumps out of the water and grabs her. I call bullshit on that.
What Alice Hardy experienced in the water was what we call a subconscious projection. The suggestion of this drowned child had already taken root in her psyche during her confrontation with Mrs. Voorhees.
Well, who gives two shits either way? I mean, Jason drowned, his mother got what she deserved, and that was the end of that business. All the insanity that followed was just a bunch of nut jobs trying to bring the legend to life.
What about the eyewitness testimony of the survivors and the hundreds of residents who claim to have seen him? Are we just supposed to disregard all of that?
They each described the same killer, except for one key difference. In one instance, he was wearing a burlap sack over his face, a potato sack. Next time he was seen up at Higgins Haven, he had on a hockey mask.
The kind goalies wear.
My son Shelley was killed that weekend. He was my whole world. He went up to the lake with Andy, his roommate, and some friends, and I never saw him again. Oh, Shelley. Who's this guy? Is this the guy? Is this the guy that did it? Is this the guy?
They think so.
What's that on his face?
It's a hockey mask.
Oh my! That hockey mask is from our team. That's a Red Hawk mask. I know because it's got the red arrows on it. Oh my God! He must have stolen that from Shelley, and right before he killed him. He was a funny kid. He used to like to play practical jokes, you know, and he liked to kid with people, and I guess this time the joke was on him.
The suspect responsible for the lakeside slayings this weekend was struck down by a fatal axe blow to the skull. His body will now be moved to the Wessex County morgue, where it will be identified and autopsied, pending an official investigation.
As it turned out, the suspect was never identified because that same night his body was stolen out of the hospital.
It was not stolen. It was Jason. He survived that axe wound to the head and then went right back to Crystal Lake to carry on his killing spree. That's the only explanation.
It's the only one that makes sense.
Science.
How does a body that's been examined by a coroner, pronounced dead on arrival, get up out of a freezer and walk out of the county morgue?
Gee, I don't know, man. Why don't we ask Axel, the medical examiner who put Jason on ice in the first place? Oh yeah, I forgot. We can't ask Axel a thing. He doesn't have a head. The old hacksaw mambo, courtesy of Jason. What about Robbie Morgan, the nurse on duty that night? Gutted like a fish on Jason's way out the door.
Is it possible to survive a direct axe wound to the head? Well, there have been rare cases where people have survived shrapnel bullets, even whole blades being driven directly into their skull, and they've recovered completely. If the wound was superficial enough, I guess it's not out of the question.
Jason returned to the area that was familiar, the woods of Crystal Lake, where he happened upon the home of the Jarvises, a recently divorced mother and her 2 children, a 17-year-old Trish and a 12-year-old named Tommy.
Other than Jason himself, Tommy Jarvis is the most significant figure in the Crystal Lake saga. Here is a boy who stepped up and did what no adult could do. Tommy brought Jason literally to his knees.
Well, that's about the biggest pile of horse manure I've ever heard. Whoever killed those people at the Jarvis house that weekend sure as hell wasn't the same person who escaped from the morgue. It could have been an accomplice or another copycat. It sure as hell wasn't Jason Voorhees.
Oh, Tommy was a bit of a precocious child. He had a great imagination. He used to draw the strangest things when he would come to class. Always had me a little bit concerned about what he was doing and what he was thinking a lot of the times.
This This kid was a genius at making latex monster masks. We're talking the kind of masks that would make Don Post shit himself with envy. He was so dedicated that when he came up against Jason, he beat him by turning his own face into a mask.
He actually transformed himself into Jason.
That's right, he seized the opportunity. He confused the killer just long enough to bring him down.
Tommy's act of transforming his appearance into one that would be instantly familiar to the killer was like holding up a mirror to Jason, or at least who he thought was Jason.
What that son of a bitch did, there's no words to describe. However much that maniac got what he deserved, Jarvis kid, he just went over the edge.
Tommy was in such an emotional state, they had to hospitalize him. It was awful losing his mother that way. It's just so hard to believe that it even happened.
Tommy Jarvis became, for all intents and purposes, a catatonic. He couldn't assimilate back into daily life, so his sister reluctantly had him committed to a state mental hospital where he remained until the age of 18.